The following is a paid program. The content is provided by the advertiser. WPSL, its staff, management, and ownership are not responsible for the content. Investment involves risk. Prior to making any investment, an investor should meet suitability requirements. Past results are not necessarily indicative of future performance. Neither the opinions expressed nor the information provided constitutes a recommendation to purchase or provide investment advice. The material presented is not a substitute for obtaining professional advice from a qualified person or firm. Securities offered through Centaurus Financial, member FINRA and SIPC. And now, the host of the TEAM MARTEK Hour, Joe Martek.
340-1590, 340-1590. This is the TEAM MARTEK Hour, and we were talking about goofy stuff just before the program started.
Oh, the news?
Well, no.
Politics.
It's been pretty goofy.
We were
talking about Joe, actually.
We were skipping politics. We'll get into that in a minute, but we were talking about weird circumstances that happen with people.
Good comeback lines, Joe.
But my favorite one, so I'm at Walmart.
Okay.
And I come out of Walmart, and I'm in the parking lot near the garden center, and they don't have a place to put carts. Of course, in the South, they're called buggies, of course. We know that.
Yeah.
I'm forgetting where I'm at.
Well, yeah. No, we call them carts up there.
They're up north.
Illinois,
they're carts up north.
too.
They're
Yeah.
buggies down
Yeah.
here. Anyway, I push it up on the dirt, and there's a car about 3 feet from it, and an old guy, probably my age, gets out.
You mean
now.
That
Your
really
age
upsets
now.
me. Yeah,
Yours
right.
now.
Gets out of the car and he says, "That buggy's in my way." And I said, "No, it's not." He says, "Yeah, it is." And I said, "Look, you got about 3 feet." He says, "I'm telling you right now, that buggy's in my way. You need to move it."
And
I
you're
said,
standing there, how do you figure?
and I said, "Have you always been a pain in the ass?" And he goes, "Yeah." I moved the buggy. He
Okay.
won.
Yeah.
He won.
Okay.
Did you now see if it would have been me, Joseph? I would have moved it closer. I would have moved it, but I would have moved it closer.
You feel like, no,
and
now
I would have
it's
said,
in your
now
way.
it's in your way, brother.
I've had a couple of circumstances that were memorable, like two old guys going 30 miles an hour in a 50 mile an hour,
Having a
45
race?
mile zone, going side by side, blocking
Blocking traffic, yeah.
So this was years and years ago when I first moved to Florida, and I'm on this 2-lane road heading towards the beach. I'm living over in Clearwater, and these two guys are side by side, and I had that Chrysler Cordoba with fine
With the
Corinthian
fine
leather.
Corinthian leather?
And
That's a nice car.
I did my Yankee grit my teeth and pulled up next to him, 1 foot on the gas, 1 foot on the brake, and I laid on that fine Corinthian leather horn and just sat there behind him. It seemed like for a minute, might have been 10, 20
He didn't
seconds.
care.
So he looks up in the mirror, in the rearview mirror, finally, after about 10 or 20 seconds, looks up, rolls his window down. This was no power windows. Rolls his window down, sticks his hand out and gives me the bird.
The one-finger
Yeah.
salute?
The one-finger salute. And pulls his hand back in, rolled his window back down slowly, and stayed right where he's at, did not move. And I thought, you know what? You won.
You won.
I calmed down, backed off. I said, I am not going to win. I am not going to win. This road rage stuff, forget it. In
You
Florida,
have to be careful.
Just don't
You
do
mean
it.
you couldn't pass him and then go slow in front of him?
I couldn't get around if I'd
Couldn't
gone
pass
on.
him on
I'd
the
have had
right?
to go on the shoulder.
On the
Okay.
shoulder. Well,
Okay.
I've done that.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you remember, but maybe when did they first change the speed limit to 55? Remember they brought it all down to 55?
During
Yeah.
Jimmy Carter.
All right, so you had two college students who were coming home from Gainesville who decided to go 55 on that holiday weekend all the way down
Ooh-wee.
and created a massive
Back
traffic
up.
jam. And their position was, we're trying to show you that traffic speed limit does not work when you have this many cars on it. You have to have a little faster.
And I will tell you that I-75 corridor that comes down, that is the most terrible corridor between Gainesville and Ocala.
Yeah.
Or all the way to Orlando, really. Anyway, 340-1590, 340-1590. Back in '04, Dan Warren, independent insurance agent, Greg Fasula, attorney, and Joe Martek, financial advisor, said, let's start doing radio shows. And Greg says, why? I says, well, Greg, you know stuff that Dan doesn't know that I don't know, and Dan knows stuff that we don't know, and I know stuff you don't know. We can answer questions.
We all don't know a lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff, right? And we can help people. So Greg thought about it for a few days, and he said, okay, how long do you think we're going to be doing these shows? I said, beats me, probably a month or two.
Yeah.
04.
It's been a while.
Here we are, we're still doing the shows. And then, over a period of time, we added Ms. Victoria Lloyd, Remax of Stewart, especially when our Great Recession hit. New words came in, and real estate became a monster subject with foreclosures, deed backs, and short sales, which brought Mike Paulus, mortgage broker, into the thing, who has really educated not only us but the consumer.
Well, real estate's still a big topic, Joe. I mean, we have, in my opinion, somewhat of a shortage of available housing.
Big time.
But it's only available if you want to steal it. Okay, and some people's mindset is still back a few years ago when the economy was so bad and the pricing was so low. Those things have changed, but you can still get an excellent value, and the interest rates are still highly competitive.
Well, there comes the magic thing. And I remember back when I was in real estate and we were doing mortgages at 16, 17, 18%. And we always said, boy, if it ever gets to 10% again, we'll get rich, because that's a deal. Well, then they got down to 2 and 3 and 4, and now it's at 5. It's a phenomenal deal. And the people that are postponing, hey, I'm not guaranteeing, but my unabashed opinion is interest rates are going to continue to go up for at least the next 2 years, and maybe longer.
Well, look at it this way, Joe. Let's suppose you were 25, 26 years old 7, 8 years ago, and all you knew was this magnificent real estate marketplace.
Yeah, that's true.
Low housing and fantastic interest rates. You don't know how quickly that stuff can change. And if you're still on the fence about thinking about buying a home, you better think about it real quick, because it won't be forever.
Yep. And you know, new construction's cranking along, especially in Florida. I was listening to CNBC this morning when they were doing the things. It's not going as strong the rest of the country, but the pent-up demand, we have so much in-migration into Florida.
I've seen a lot of the bigger contractors, the national contractors and the bigger regional contractors. They are cranked up, but I don't see as many of the small custom builders as I used to see when the market was super, super hot. I'm hoping they come back, because, you know, this is just my opinion, I think they build a fantastic product for you.
Sure. A lot of those guys, they went out of business, obviously. Some of them moved out of state.
They went to where the construction was still viable.
Yeah.
Well, I was in Miami last week, and it's like we're trying to turn Florida into California.
And we are.
It is. The roads are huge. The highways are just. It's crazy. It's.
You know,
there's cranes everywhere in Miami. They're building like.
I talked to a friend of mine who is a upper echelon in Publix, and he was saying, you know, their statistical data shows we in this part of Florida are going to get more people moving in from South Florida than we are from the Northeast. And it used to be we looked to the Northeast for the majority of our new residents, and now we're looking to South Florida for the majority of our new residents.
Yeah, I kind of like living up here in Bumpkinville. I wish it could stay this way, but
it won't.
That it's not. No, it won't.
Nothing stays the same.
But, you know, when Nancy and I came up here, there were 7,500 people that lived in the city. And we ran away from West Palm because we thought it was too crowded back then. So, you know, things do change.
340-1593.
Hang on, because you only have one set of headphones.
Well, he only needs one.
Okay, but then you guys don't hear.
Jeff is on the line, right?
Yeah, but Jeff, hang on.
Jeff?
They don't have headphones.
Well, go ahead, just dump them. I'll move it in case Jeff doesn't want me. He can talk to Dan.
You got it.
Jeff, you're on the radio. It's Joe Martek. Good morning.
Joe Martek, I value your opinion greatly, and I just wanted to get an idea of what you think about all this Kavanaugh crap that's going on.
Well, we know how you feel with that last word.
Way to go, Jeff.
Dictating to the Senate what she wants and what she's going to do. And, you know, and it's like...
Is this the lady who can't remember where it was and when it happened and what house she was in on what day?
But she can tell the FBI.
Who was there?
We
Is
want
that lady?
Oh,
yeah, I love that too.
But I want a full-fledged FBI investigation on this, because the 6 other times that you guys did it, you didn't do it right or didn't do something. But, you know, I never told anybody because I was not upset at the time. I probably enjoyed it. But, you know.
If it even happened, I'm not even sure.
If it happened.
If it even happened, correct. I want to emphasize that, because I don't think it even happened. I think she's just...
Let me ask you, Jeff, you're not 16 anymore, right?
No.
How old were you the first time you got slapped by a girl?
I I got any slapped. I got shoved. But that's all
I'm
right.
sorry, 16-year-old girls want to be kissed by 16-year-old boys.
Anyway, and especially
That's
if
the
they're
way it
at
used to
if
be
they're-
anyway.
Now, how did the girl get into a bedroom with this guy?
Her story is that she was on her way to the restroom and they pushed her in there.
Oh.
I hadn't heard that.
Yeah,
heard
that's
that.
well, that's what I heard. I don't know if that's really the story, but that's what I heard.
All I know is
But she can't tell you which boy
No,
pushed her.
and she can't tell you where the house is either.
Oh,
So-
my God.
Yeah.
But let me give you something. Here's a positive from out of this whole thing. If you notice that Trump right away jumped on it, said, hey, let's do a full investigation. Let's get everybody testifying. Let's bring them in. Because as far as he's concerned, and that's how my opinion is, this is 1,000% fraud. This woman's being paid millions of dollars to do this because her salary of $125 a year is not enough and living in California. So she's going to get a few mil or who knows how much. And the key thing is Trump said, yeah, okay, fine. Let's milk this thing. This is so ridiculous. The Democrats had the information over a month ahead of time and then held it for a month until they waited until this thing was full.
They played their trump card to their advantage, and I understand the
Pun
the
intended,
game,
huh?
the pun intended. But here's what I don't understand, and this is just my personality. If somebody did that to me, I'd have them sued the next day. I truly would.
See, but
I would sue them for libel and slander and say, it doesn't matter how this other thing's going, you're going to have consequences to pay.
Well,
That's what I was going to say. Do they ever have to pay for the consequences of lying straight out like that? I mean, because you hear about the guys that they sold up for the Republican Party that he lied to the FBI. He lied to the FBI. He lied. What about all the other guys that lied? Hillary Clinton. Let's go down the list of people that lied.
go down
to
the
FBI.
list, right? The key thing is lying is okay. Slander and libel, now there's a different story altogether.
And he can definitely show a libelous and a slanderous loss.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
is he a public person now? Is that where
No.
they?
Well, I don't know that
draw
there's
the
a
line?
line.
He's a judge.
I don't think there is
He's a sitting judge.
Well, he would know whether or not he had a case.
Yeah.
Well,
he
yeah,
would know.
but here comes the thing.
I know I'd sue.
If he gets
Yeah.
elected to the Supreme Court, I mean, he's not gonna. He's just gonna let it go because this is was a fraud. On the
But
other
that's
hand,
a shame if this is something that is hurting his family and hurting his reputation, and let's face it, there are going to be lots and lots of people out there in this world who are going to think, oh, he did it. No matter what happens, they're always going
Well,
to
they
say
wanna
he
believe
did
it, too.
They want to believe
you know,
it.
our
So
system-
he needs to vindicate himself, in my opinion, if he can, in a court of law.
especially he's got two little girls sitting in that confirmation.
Yeah.
What- I mean, this
Well, I
is
got something to say. I remember when I was back in California, I was at a party with Dianne Feinstein, and she took me in the back room, and I think she put her hand. What I'm saying, Dianne Feinstein was having a little problem with. Hold it a second. We need to do an
Did she
investigation
push
on
you
this.
into the bed?
Jeff,
Yes.
you just like older women. That's all.
Oh yeah.
Really older.
Older, not ugly.
You were desperate, Jeff. I hate to tell you.
I know, but when you push me,
I know. Hey,
to me, and
I know.
you know.
Listen, I have been taken advantage by women left and right my whole life.
And loved every minute of
Loved
it.
every
No,
minute.
they all divorced me and kept the house.
They kept all the money.
Well,
They got a house out of it. Marry me, get a free house.
that's it. I think, Jeff, what's going to happen, and I think this whole thing is going to, and our guest attorney, Alan Love, was here today on the way in. We said, this is probably going to backfire on the Democrats, and it's going to create more. Listen, there's a whole bunch of us that were 16, 17, 15, 14, whatever that was.
13, 12.
And,
Yeah, but way back when people were more sensible.
I don't know that boys didn't care. We were never sensible at that age. But the key thing
The media was.
for this to come out 40 years later is ludicrous at the very best, because this guy has been vetted by the FBI how many times? Six times.
But now let me
gone from-
ask you, and I don't know what the FBI does when they vet you.
Evidently not too
But
much.
do they say, hey, Kevin, when you were in high school, you didn't perhaps cop a feel every once in a while, or kiss some? I don't think they ask those questions, but maybe they do. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Copping a feel. First,
but
I got nailed was in the coat room at St. Agatha.
If those advances are unwanted, you handle it right there, and
Well, absolutely.
you move
absolutely.
on.
Listen, I taught my daughters real quick. if there's something
Next, they'll be
want,
saying that when you were in kindergarten, you punched this little girl for no reason at all, and
That's
you're
it.
a violent person.
That's
now.
it. That's
You're
it.
violent, yeah.
You're violent forever, right?
actually, if you use your
Yep.
thumb and your pointer finger to make a gun symbol, they'll probably expel you.
Yeah.
There you
Expel
go.
you,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
No cowboys
Oh,
and
yeah.
Indians.
Well, all I know is, Jeff, that I think this is going to work to the benefit of the Republican Party and in the midterm elections.
We hope so.
We hope so.
Yeah, that's. I have to agree with you that but they just. I watched them on MSNBC this morning. That guy was bouncing up and down in the chair, yelling and screaming about it.
Oh, I'm
I mean,
telling you
it
what.
was like, I was like, he's acting like he's. They're going to start a civil war.
Yeah.
That's what they're going to do.
Liberals,
That's what they want.
so desperately to nail him. They're willing to do anything. And the liberal media, I just get such a
You have
kick.
to watch that channel though for the comedy
It is.
properties,
Well,
not for like the news.
You got-
Do you think
know,
it's because
get a
the
chuckle.
ultra liberals have been using the Supreme Court, to push their agenda?
Every
Do
court.
you think that
Every
that's why
court.
they're so upset about this? I suspect that's the
Hey,
case.
Jeff, thanks for calling in,
Yep.
my man. We got another.
You have a great.
Thanks
Thanks, Joe.
Bye, Jeff.
Okay. 340-1590, 340-1590. Mike, Joe Martek, you're on the radio.
Hey, good morning. It's a happy show, and I've got a couple of
Happy
things
day.
to add to
Hey,
it.
I'm telling you what, as I said, you heard Jeff just saying, and I and Alan Love on the way in, we just said, this thing might just work out to the benefit of us
Well, what we're
conservatives.
hoping is that people with a certain amount of gray matter will see the hypocrisy here, and it will motivate them to say, you know what, I've had enough of this. I'm going to go vote, and I'm going to vote this particular way to maintain that particular electoral body that I want, instead of sitting home. This may build up and fire up that Republican base a lot more than people realize.
I wonder about if you asked every married woman that we know, and I've not asked any except our producer here, when you were 14, 15, 16, did a guy ever try to cop a feel?
Well, I don't know about that, but I just know that 16-year-old girls usually like to be kissed by 17-year-old boys.
I mean, I'm just curious.
And again, I have to go back to that. Any unwanted advances, you usually get vocal about that. You push this person away.
I always-
You leave.
You make it known right then.
You handle it.
Yeah, I thought
Yeah.
that. I thought
But
that.
if she's
You don't go
saying-
into therapy
now,
30 years later.
Is this lady saying, hey, I was so drunk at underage and illegally drinking
That I don't know
that
who
I
it
don't
was?
know that I wasn't able to? Is she saying that? I haven't heard that.
Yeah. Well, I'm hearing that she doesn't know what year it was. She doesn't know what house it was. She don't know whose house it was. So there's a lot of, I don't know, things that she doesn't remember. But
Mike,
she remembers that.
But maybe if she hadn't snuck off to drink at a party that her parents didn't know about and drank so much that she got into that condition, that maybe that wouldn't have happened. That's a possibility. But listen, hey, I've always taught my daughters and my son to act in a very respectful way, and don't let those situations happen. Now, I can only tell you how I raised my children. Now, did they always do that? Do I know everything that they did? Absolutely not. I don't know.
Did your father raise you that way?
My father did not raise me that way. My father basically said, don't call me to come get you because I don't have any money, so if you get in trouble, you're on your own.
Hey, Mike, it is more entertaining, you got to admit.
Well, my point today, for all the weepy, sad, angry people in the press and in television trying to crash our happy conservative party, laugh and the world laughs with you. Cry and you're all alone.
I'm telling you what, I'll buy it. I like it.
And then 5,000 years ago, the one they called the supreme enjoyer, Krishna said, food eaten in anger turns to poison.
Way to go, my man.
Wise.
Words of wisdom, Miguel. We like it.
The president is being measured because he doesn't want to enrage and inflame the Me Too movement, so he's being wise. That's the way I see it.
I think it was a very smart move that he said, "Yep, let's check this thing out and let them milk it to death and make it more and more ludicrous all the time."
Well, for the second 10 years of my 40 years of work, I'm the guy that ran the movies at the Fort Pierce Drive-In Theater. And if that wasn't fun,
Eye-opening experience.
Were you the guy that had to go around knocking on the windows?
Yes, and I also
Just the ones that were steamed up. where you
All the
couldn't
ones
see
that were steamed
inside.
up. you
Movie's
couldn't-
over. Time to go.
we made the money at the concession stands. We knew half the people in there hadn't paid to get in. That
Right,
was
exactly. And hey, we used to sneak them in the trunk, everything, right? Back
every
in-
which way. They'd
every
come
which
right
way
through
you
the woods.
could.
Yeah, we knew it all, but we were happy.
Yay, Mike, you're right.
And the company, Kent Theaters, would send up a box every couple of weeks of those speakers that would hang on the windows.
That would get ripped off.
And people would drive off with them.
Yeah.
And me knowing how to do it, I would reattach and replace on the weekend. Then I'd get out a push mower and mow the whole place on a Saturday.
See?
I'd be in there at 3 in the morning setting up a new film on the platter system. It was a whole way of life.
I know. Hey, listen, we all had a
Now,
ball
did you
with
ever
it.
go to an air-conditioned drive-in?
No.
No.
Yes, air-conditioned drive-in.
Where?
In Lake Worth, on Lake Worth Road.
We had little hand air conditioning.
They had
Little hose?
out of the speaker was a little hose, and they would air condition your car. But they had the same problems that you were discussing. People would forget and drive away, and they had so many ripped off that they ended up doing away with the AC part.
Unbelievable. I've never heard that.
Oh,
Hey, Mike.
You know, the property was always cheap that the drive-ins would be put on because it was way outside
Right,
of town.
right.
Then the town would grow out, and the property values would skyrocket.
Sure.
And taxes. That's what drove us out. We were never without customers.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, you're bringing back good memories.
And one more quick one. I don't know if anyone remembers a day when you're be with your family watching the TV and it would beep, suddenly it had gone dead. You'd run and get a screwdriver, pull the back off, look and see a little black tube, pull it out, drive to the 7-Eleven.
I remember
Put
that.
it in
We
the
go to
food
Eckert's. We
checker,
go to Eckert's.
Find out
But-
that it was bad, go to the counter, and in 5 minutes they'd be selling you the replacement tube.
I remember those
Run
days.
home, stick it in, and the TV'd work.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That was a good day.
I'm telling you
Hey,
what,
we
man.
had 2 TVs when I was growing up. One for the picture and one for the sound, and they were stacked on top of each other.
There you go.
With rabbit ears with aluminum foil hanging from
We
them.
did have an antenna. My job was to go out there and turn it ever so much, and my dad would yell, "Stop
hold
that
it right
stud,
there."
right there."
Hey,
That's
Mike.
unreal.
Thanks for calling in, my man.
Okay, have a good day now.
Okay, 340-1590, 340. Do we have Tom on the radio?
I'm not sure, Tom. Are you there?
Tom, are you there? No.
But he can
Yeah,
call
but
back.
there's no dial tone, so somebody's still on that line.
You think?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he took a potty break.
Yeah.
Well,
We'll check back.
We'll check back and
Saga continues.
Well,
I hear
We'll
the
check
phone.
back.
I hear the phone ringing. Is nobody answering?
That's the holdout in the lobby.
while we're waiting for Tom, I just want to mention as a former prosecutor, I am really appalled and upset by how things have changed over the years. When I started as a prosecutor, if somebody made an allegation, if the police and obviously being a prosecutor, you worked with the police. If they didn't have the evidence, if I couldn't put all the pieces together, I would say, I need this, or goodbye, you
Yeah.
have nothing here. Now it's gotten to the point where our system is becoming like it was in the communist system.
Yeah.
You have to prove your innocence.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Rather than the prosecutor having to prove
Innocent
the
till
guilt.
proven guilty.
And then also on the other side of the bar, there was a line that the defense bar wouldn't cross. In other words, they wouldn't do everything in their power to get somebody off if in fact they shouldn't get off. But now a lot of the defense bar has that attitude.
Well-
I can make a name for myself if I get this client off. And this is
But
why
the glove doesn't fit.
Yes, we know.
well, we know that.
But I saw him at a football game wearing him holding an umbrella.
But
I'm sorry, they had that picture.
But the American people really have a choice now. If we want the America that fostered the American dream, then we've got it.
Well, listen, if the premise is you're innocent till proven guilty, and that's what I've always been taught to believe all my life.
But you're being tried now in the media.
Well,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
you know, that's where, in my opinion, you have had some celebrities in the past who've said, you know what, I've had enough of that,
Yeah.
and I'm suing you. So you can say what you want, but let's see what happens when I take every dime you have. Listen, just because I am, let's say, a politician or something, I'll give you a good example. One of my favorite, presidents was Andrew Jackson. So as you know, he had married a woman who was divorced. A man had said, "Oh no, she wasn't properly divorced. You're marrying her out of the law." Pissed him off so bad. Andrew Jackson, he took matters in his own hands. Just because he's an important person doesn't mean he's not a man going to take care of what he needs to take care of.
There you go.
And I believe that. Just because I was, some big official, if you said something bad about my wife or family, I may or may not go to a lawyer. I may take it up personally with you. And I think that a lot of people hide behind, "Oh, my lawyer." No, I'll deal with you. And that's just my opinion.
Well, we were talking about this morning, that we're getting to a point now, and you heard the Uber driver and the football player, blah, blah, blah. Okay, we're all going to need body cameras, and we're going to have to be, in order to defend ourselves against accusations
Well, when you go to
things
some
that may not have
countries,
happened.
like when we were in Russia, 90% of all the
Dash
cars
cams,
have those
yeah.
dash cams because of that very purpose. They live in a world of paranoia.
Yeah, all you have to do is go onto YouTube, and because people have posted some really, really cool videos.
But you know the one I really like politically that we've not talked about, which I think is probably the most ludicrous thing I have ever seen in my whole life, is John Kerry in Iran.
Where did he run to?
I mean, an
Shouldn't there be charges there? Because
now forgive me. I'd probably have to look up the definition of treason. But if you're undermining the current administration and you're a citizen of the United States,
especially if you held a position,
but even if
he held,
the fact that they let him into Iran, number one, number two, that he's over there bad mouthing our current administration.
Is that like sedition?
I mean, isn't this wrong?
It feels like he's undermining the country, not only just the president, but the country.
And up until Obama, presidents didn't come out and badmouth each other at the end. This went on and on. It was like
is he over there still apologizing for America?
Evidently.
Yeah.
Evidently.
He never stopped.
Yep. Anyway, I just, and there's been very little publicity, very little, about Kerry, what he did, which there's going to be tons on this judge about this little girl when she was 16 or 15 or 17, but that it's how unbalanced.
Well, we live in a different world. Listen, I can remember my dad saying to many people, and most people took it at his word. He would tell you, "I'll deal with you now.
Yeah.
I'll deal with the judge if I have to."
Yeah.
Right? And you know what? Some people feel that they can do anything, say anything, slander and libel anybody, and there's no consequences. And I tell you, that's not how it is in my world.
340-1590, 340-1590. Do we hit politics reasonably well today?
Well, one thing about the legal system is, I forgot which one of you mentioned it, but taking on accusations. I just saw a documentary recently of Oprah Winfrey. Remember the mad cow disease?
Yeah.
She said she would never have another hamburger. and the cattle ranchers in Texas sued her. They figured they were going to get a number of millions of dollars from her, which she could afford to give, obviously. But Dr. Phil, that's how Dr. Phil really got started. He advised her, take this to the limit, go to court, and she won.
How about that?
And you've got to stand up for people, and this is what our election's all about in November.
Yeah,
And we've got to stand up for this country.
I like the one where they were showing on
Did
Fox
she ever
News
have
the other
another
day.
burger, by the way?
I bet you.
You'll have to ask her.
All the celebrities that said they're leaving America when Trump got elected, and not one of them left.
Darn.
Gee, it was like 20 of them.
More than that.
Yeah. None of them left. Just amazing, isn't it?
Well, they're doing much better here as part of the resistance.
Well,
if
They're
you
doing
get
their part.
If you get your news from a celebrity, chances are it's not really good news, not very accurate news, and you should. And we've always said this in the past. You should always do your own homework and know if you're against something. You should know why you're against it, not just because you heard somebody say something.
Well, always your neighbor knows more than you do.
My neighbor does.
And, yeah. And wives know everything.
That's right. No comment.
No comment.
No comment.
My baby knows everything.
Well, you just covered your butt there. A little late, but not bad. 340-1590, 340-1590. Well, other than that, what's new other than the fact everybody wants flood
Everybody
insurance?
wants flood insurance. Well, you know, here's the thing, and we've talked about this before. At the beginning of hurricane season, if you want, you know, the federal flood program, you can come to the office today and buy it. It goes into effect in 30 days. But there are some companies that have started a flood insurance program on their own, an independent program. And the reason is, as we've known in the past, federal flood insurance is funded by the government, and they have let it run out before, and then it takes a couple of weeks before I can write another policy, and you never know if they're going to actually reinstate it. So they have made it clear to the private sector, hey, you need to get more involved in flood insurance. It can't be a federal-only program. And the nice thing about having your flood insurance and your homeowner's insurance with the same company is they can't say, oh, that's not a flood claim, that's a wind claim. It doesn't matter. It's all them.
Yeah,
but I can tell you, when you know, we've had major hurricanes hit, there's been a lot of finger pointing of saying, that's not flood, that's wind. And then the wind guy saying, oh, that's not wind, it's flood.
Or they say that's wind-driven rain and you're not covered
and you
anyway.
get stuck in the middle.
That's
You get
true.
stuck in the
That's
middle.
true.
So,
Speaking of North and South Carolina and your relatives,
hey, they've all done well. My sister, who lives in Myrtle Beach, they went to her other home in Asheville, which didn't get
up in the hill,
too badly, you know, inundated with flooding, and they're going to go back probably in another 2 days. My oldest daughter, she went to Alabama, and she's headed back today. She's going to stop in Columbia and then go the rest of the way into Wilmington. But
Now your family in Myrtle Beach, are they underwater?
she said they're fine.
Okay.
She said they're fine. They, you know, they still have power, and they have all these cameras.
But I saw video of places that had waves like lapping up against the building, and it still had power.
Yeah. Well,
amazing.
she said that there's no flooding around her home.
her house.
Now, she can't tell me about, you know, downtown and
or
other
whether or not
places.
they can get there
You know.
because of
Well,
roads and stuff.
Now, in defense of the media, are they ever going to show the good news, or only going to show the bad
No,
news?
because they're going to show you the reporter standing in the middle of the road at
Yeah.
a low spot
Of course.
with his microphone, and then people are going to walk by on the sidewalk
We've all
with
seen
dry
that.
shoes.
We've all seen
Right.
that.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole concept, and you get a bit jaded, and I feel sorry for some of these, quote, kids that are young reporters. They're given information to run with, and they don't have a clue.
But if you did what you were told to do, which was, hey, you need to prepare, you have to have so much water, so much food, either make sure you have a can opener, all these things you're supposed to have. If you did all those things, you're probably okay. You're not inconvenienced. You are inconvenienced. We have a much softer society. We're used to our AC and our electricity and all those things that we take for granted, but you're going to survive.
But they did lose 37 people. I mean, this is a
Yes,
pretty
they did.
devastating.
Well, now the thing
storm.
is, they used to report it directly related and then total, because some
Yeah.
people are killed in car accidents, some people have heart attacks, but now they're lumping everyone
Well,
together.
that's
Make it
Trump-
all storm related.
That's Trump in
Yeah.
Puerto Rico.
Well, that's the same thing.
But you know, Hurricane Gene killed like 3,000 people.
Yeah,
Well,
really.
listen, in my own office, in my portfolio, I was doing some statistical analysis for about a year after the major hurricanes we had, and I could show you the large number of either widows or widowers who were elderly who passed
During the storm or thereabouts.
within 6 months.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if it's storm related. I suspect it's due to the stress and the trauma and all the stuff that you went through, and you're thinking, oh Lord, you know, just take
Maybe.
me home. I'm done.
Maybe just old age.
Could be, but I'm just telling you that those storms affect people. You know, the good part about the storm is that it does bring the neighbors together, and people who you may have never known, you get to know.
340-1590, 340-1590. What's that squiggle on the bottom under Bulldog?
I don't know.
That's rain.
There was a hung
That's
up.
the flooding sound.
It's rain. Is it? Hey, Bulldog, is it raining up there?
No, it's raining bulldog. I don't know. You know? How are you guys?
We're good.
We're doing good. We're having a bit of fun with all the political aggravation that's going on, but we're kind of thinking this is going to backfire on the Democrats because it's getting a little bit more. I know that you never, ever, ever copped a feel when you were a teenager.
No, I feel the cop, though.
No, I like that. That's a good answer.
Sorry.
Score one for Bulldog.
Score one for Bulldog, right?
All right.
Well, no, I got busted twice. At the same time.
Score two for Bulldog.
Right.
Oh,
Do you
boy.
remember the place and the time?
Oh, I think I was drunk at the moment. So no. Anyway, hey, I just called in to say we're going to be in the area October 22nd, 23rd.
Did that give us advance
yeah.
notice?
That's what it is, advance note, and you're buying McAllen, right?
Well, I don't think that they have McAllen. We'll be at Sneaky Tiki on the 22nd and Draft House on the 23rd.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stop in there.
Is
and
it
tell
like a
them-
bar tour or something?
I'm going to tell them to order a bottle of McAllen and put it on your tab. So don't feel bad about it.
Oh no,
Sneaky
I'm not,
Tiki, where's
I'm not
that?
worried about that. No, it's not a bar tour. It's for the Pick'em League. I'm the commissioner, so it's kind of a meet and greet. So there should be 20, 30 people, maybe.
You never
that'll
know.
show up
Yeah.
and whatever, and we're just gonna have a good time. But if you guys
We'll
wanna,
we'll put you on the calendar.
hook up and say hi, we like all of you guys.
All right, my man.
And Alan, yeah,
Yes.
that includes you.
It includes
Well, thank you, Bulldog.
Because I love Alan. He's a great guy.
Well, he's not quite that good, but he's okay.
I'm starting
Can
to
I
like
still
him
be
more
your
than
neighbor
you,
with?
Joe.
Can I still be your neighbor with Greg Fasula on the other side?
Well, this would be interesting, wouldn't it? Greg
Well,
moved out of town for fear I was going to move close to him.
Oh yeah, bring the Democrat. Who cares?
That's it. That's it.
He's a moderate. He's a moderate.
Yeah, a very moderate
Oh,
liberal.
right.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. He likes
Anyway.
he likes Nancy.
All right.
All
Nice
right.
talking to you guys. Have
Okay.
a good day.
340-1590, 340-1590. Anyway, yeah, it's listen, again, we should normally we get a little bit depressed when we get this negative press, but I'm thinking the negative press we're getting is going to be
I didn't get depressed at all, Joe. I got irritated.
well. See,
It's like, are you this desperate that you have to pull out the Anita Hill problem again?
But
I mean,
didn't-
you
I
wait
didn't
till the
get-
last day.
I just thought, I said, hey, Trump is taking this thing and running with it and going to milk it and going to turn it to his advantage, to the Republican. And I really think that's what's happening. Everybody was so shocked that he came up and said, yeah, let's do this investigation. Let's just go with it.
Well, he's like the Energizer Bunny. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
He's working when they're all sleeping.
That's a fact.
And let's get to it. No delays, no,
Yeah.
forget the paperwork. Let's just get to it.
Well, I can take all your excuses away. Here's what we're going to do, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah.
Let's just do
Bam.
it.
Now
Just-
you
just
have
get
no
it.
excuses. Let's move on.
Let's get on with it. Yeah.
That's it.
He is the most media savvy president we've ever had.
I
Hey,
believe that.
listen, every president gets elected and said they're going to be open and they're going to talk to people all the time. Not one has ever done it. This guy never really said
Much
it
to their
much, but he does it
surprise,
all
he
the
does
time.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, hey, he's an open book, transparent. 340-1590, 340-1590. Thanks for all our callers today, even Bulldog. That was good, and he didn't even have anything uninteresting to say. Hey, McAllen, that's all I worry about with Bulldog. And by the way, for people that don't know, in our group, there's local professionals, and there's about 200 years worth of combined experience. And I think Bulldog and Mary Beth used every one of us. You for his insurance, me for investments, Greg for will and trust. I mean, Victoria sold him a house, bought him a house. I
Yeah.
mean,
Mike.
Mike finance. Anyway,
Bought him and sold him a house
Yeah,
in a very
yeah,
quick
yeah.
turnover, too.
Yeah. 340-1590, 340-1590. Other than that, Dan, see, the insurance business is cranking along. Nothing new with the flood insurance stuff. That kind
No,
of
flood insurance, I mean, we were expecting that after all this. One of the things that did come up that we don't normally talk about is, when you turn 50, 55, depending on the carrier, they'll sometimes give you a discount on your car insurance. And, I guess it's one of the few things you can look forward to as you get older. But the older you get, they take it away.
Yeah.
All right. And all of a sudden.
Is that what you've done to me?
Well, you're not to that point yet.
thought
It's
I
your
was-
driving record.
Cut me to the quick.
When you get to a certain age, some carriers will raise your rates.
Yeah.
So there's a tiny little window of opportunity when you're middle-aged.
There's about a 20-year period,
Okay.
25-year period, and you revert back to like the same thing as when you were first driving.
Okay.
Because your reflexes are historically not as good. If you get whacked not too hard, you might have sustained major injuries because your bones may be brittle. And while it's not necessarily, what you want to hear as an elderly driver, that's what happens in many cases. So, I've made the decision, like when my dad shouldn't drive and he still had a license, and we talked him into giving up his car and starting a taxi cab fund. Now we have Uber and all kinds of different other sources of transportation. When I get to that age, I'm going to Uber. I'm not going to take my life and your life.
What do you mean when you get to that age?
When I get to that level of driving incompetency.
Oh, okay, because you've passed that age part.
I've got a ways to go, Joe.
Yeah, that's a really hard one for a lot of people.
Well, I feel old.
I mean, that's your independence,
Well,
being able to run to McDonald's for a cheeseburger if you.
Hey,
I can't even do that.
I can Uber right to the McDonald's.
You could Grubhub and have them bring them to you.
They didn't have
The
Uber
internet's
when my dad
yeah.
shouldn't be driving. So, like I said, we started a taxi cab fund because my dad liked to go to Perkins for breakfast.
Yeah.
And I said, Dad, go to Perkins, make him stay and wait. Make him wait. And when you're done, go back home.
Yeah.
Treat him like a chauffeur.
Buy him breakfast.
Well,
Yeah.
it's funny you say
company.
that. I went to
Yeah.
Tire Kingdom and got some tires put on, called Uber. They came and picked me up within 30 seconds of my call, took me down to Manatee. I bought him lunch,
Yep.
and he took me back.
Yeah.
It was great, like you just said.
Yeah.
Now a regular cab driver probably wouldn't do that.
Hey, I talked to a guy he's a young guy, got a DUI, lost his license. We sat down and analyzed his situation, and we decided between the two of us it was cheaper for him not to buy insurance than to Uber.
Yeah. Well,
Not to buy.
Stay
you don't
off
have
the road.
Stay off the road.
the car expense all by itself.
Absolutely.
I mean, let's face it, cars don't go up in value unless you get an antique.
Now,
which you're not gonna
if
drive.
everybody decides to Uber and there's only one car left, we're all in trouble.
Yeah,
So, we got to have cars, but at the same time, it's a great option out there.
And what about the new safety features coming on the cars? Will that have an effect on not lowering or not raising the rates of older drivers?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily, because what you have is that's based on age. The comp and collision rates and the PIP rates, which are based on the safety features of your car, that probably won't be affected by the age of the driver. But the overall impact, because of getting older, will probably override the savings of the newer car's features. That makes sense?
Yes.
And the other side of the coin is, let's face it, people are living longer and longer, and there's a lot of people all of a sudden in their 90s that 2 generations ago weren't there. I mean, we didn't have a bunch of old people. Now, besides
90
Dan
is
and
the
I,
new
and,
80,
Look at the 3 of us sitting right here. I mean, we comprise a
lot.
long time.
What about theft of vehicles? I mean, because I would think that all this new technology, car thieves can't be stealing cars because, I mean, they have the ability to just cut the car off. And they have,
Well,
all this tech.
if you're truly a car thief, not just an opportunist, you know what to steal and what not to steal.
But is the technology affecting insurance in any way for?
The VIN number of your car will indicate everything that it has on it as far as the features. That's then built into the matrix of when we put your VIN number in, the insurance carrier will have all that built in, and they'll know. If you have, anti-lock brakes, you have 2 airbags, you have an airbag on every corner of your car.
Anti-theft
all
stuff.
they know all that. And they'll ask you, do you have anti-theft or do you have a more aggressive theft system? If it's just a key fob.
I would think that they should let my car explode if someone steals it.
No, but Dan, isn't some of the newer cars are harder to steal?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely.
the technology.
So your comprehensive rate would be affected.
Yeah.
And if you look at your comprehensive overall cost, it's not that high.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. What's high is the bodily injury, the property damage,
Yep.
and the uninsured motorist.
Yep.
The things that lawyers look for, can I sue you? And if so, how much am I going to get?
340-1590, 340-1590. Just a subject that has happened to me it just seems like the last couple weeks it's become a pretty focal thing. People either retiring or leaving their employer, and they end up with a 401k, 403b, pick any number. Anyway, a plan that they were working under that had money put into it either by the employer or by you, the employee, or both, and they're rolling them over. Well, it's a very interesting thing.
Be like into their own IRA or something?
Yeah, well, they're going to transfer it into their own IRA, which is a rollover, which is a tax-free exchange. But invariably, I call it the golden rule. You know, he who has the gold rules. Sometimes money is not that hard to get away from some of these companies. They just seem to have 7 people working that take money and 1 person
to
working
give it back.
that gives it back. You never noticed that? So I have just had one that we've been working now for a few weeks. Client died. Husband is the beneficiary. She worked for a very legitimate, everything is wonderful. Nobody returns phone calls. Then finally got through today after a couple weeks to a person who said, oh, we no longer handle that. It's been outsourced to another company.
That's why we haven't been returning
and
your
I
calls.
said, okay, fine. Well, can I contact them? No.
Why not?
And I said, you know, and my client now is getting a little upset.
Let me ask you, not to cut you off. Let's suppose that happened to me, and you know I have a short fuse sometimes. Could I not just file a complaint with some federal bureaucracy?
No kidding. Well, here's what I said. She says, okay, fine, we're going to do this. Is there a number I can call to follow up? Not necessarily who you're talking to, but somebody. She said, I'll give you this number you can follow up to see. And I said, okay, I'm going to call next week. And I told the client, today's Wednesday, I'll call on Monday. Now, if we end up with a case that they are just not letting go, and usually it's nothing to do with personal, it's to do with incompetence.
Customer no service.
Customer no service. They've got people that are either overworked or don't know what they're doing. And I said, you know, but oftentimes a complaint to the right government agency
stimulates them.
So, and that's what I said to the girl today on the phone. I says, you know, are you going to light a fire under them, or do I light the fire? Because, you know, I know who I should call in case this keeps going on, because this client died on August the 11th, and it was reported August 16th.
You could have walked there, gave him whatever you needed, and walked home by now.
Yeah, twice, because it's in Wisconsin.
Absolutely.
Anyway, all I'm trying to say is...
Yeah, but, you know, the longer they hold that money, you know, in their account...
You think there's a motivation, but I honestly don't believe that.
One?
It's incompetence, because these companies hire people that that's their job. Take it in, take it out. They're all salaried people. They're not motivated. They're not salesmen.
Oh, they do crazy things, Joe. I had an account, and I wanted to take the money out. I gave them everything that they needed.
Right.
Finally, they sent me this piece of paper that said, you have to sign this that says if you lost money from the time we got it till the time we distribute it, it's not our fault.
No kidding.
So I signed it. But my account didn't go down. It went up by 30 grand, and they kept it.
Oh, between the time frames?
They kept it.
Oh, boy, oh, boy. Did you get upset?
My lawyer got upset, and I got upset. But after a while, you know when you make those decisions that say it's no longer the principle, it's the money I'm spending, it's like I let that go.
Well, you know, and there is something to be said for that. Like my attorney one time said, Joe, it might cost you 50 grand to win.
What's funny, though, is if you owed them money, how quickly you'd have to get it to them.
Well, that's a different program.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the key is, and I've had this happen, money got lost for a whole month. Well, guess what? It wasn't the client's fault. It was somebody else's fault. And like you said, Dan, you can go back and say, okay, here was $100,000. The market went up 5% during that period. That's $5 grand. You should credit that client $5,000 because it wasn't their mistake.
They go, oh no.
Try that one, boy. That's an exciting.
What if I said I was going to take all this money out and put it in XYZ stock, and XYZ stock has gone up all this money? Yeah, now I want you to not only give me, I want you to give me my earnings.
Of course.
Forget that.
Yeah, forget that. The key is this. It's I think when you hit the buzzer, and now everything's a recorded line.
Well, what's up with 401ks? Because I have a similar story. I had rolled a 401k from one company because the bigger company bought the company I worked for.
Right.
So I said, oh, well, I'll just keep it there.
it there.
My coworkers put it in IRAs, which is what I should have done because they lost it for 6 months.
Well, here
We had to go through the whole
know.
process of finding the canceled check and who actually got the money.
And guess what happened? It just kind of sat in limbo. Now, the money was probably not invested. It was just sitting in a...
Do you think that there's millions and millions of dollars sitting in limbo, Joe?
Oh,
Like
no
that?
kidding. I mean, what Dan said, millions and millions that are just sitting in between.
And what happens to that money? Does it go to the Red Cross after 50 years?
You know, there's an interesting thing.
Yeah, but it's working in a 401k. Isn't it still working for the whole
Yes,
plan?
No,
the whole.
You are individual in a 401k. Whatever you're invested in, you're invested in. What the person on the other side of the desk is invested in, they're invested in. Could be the same
Yeah,
stuff.
probably with this company, we were invested in the company.
I doubt it.
Well, you'd be surprised how these banks and stuff work. I can tell you that I have all this documentation of stuff that my great-grandfather put in a Swiss bank. 'Cause, you know, he was the Minister of Agriculture for the Tsar. It was a large amount of money. It all went to the Red Cross after 50 years or whatever because no one could prove this or prove that. And, you know, they're notorious for taking stuff.
Key is there's like a window that comes along and there's an axe that falls.
Well, they had to have money to rebuild Europe, so
Well, of course.
everybody paid for it.
Hey, you know, there's a whole bunch of stories about what happened during the Second World War and the First World War and the monies that were absconded
It just
and never
vanished.
found.
It just vanished.
Yeah. 34050. Anyway, all I was trying to get across was when you run into these situations, I'm one of those people that sounds gentle on the radio, but I am not. I will give people the benefit of the doubt for a short period of time.
I'm that way, but I do not do stupid well. It just
I don't.
irks
You know, who was it? There was more than one person that said that. A few.
I saw a nice picture. It had John Wayne, and I bid on it, and it says, "It's supposed to hurt to be stupid." That was what he had said.
340-1590, 340-1590. I want to thank Mike and Bulldog and Jeff. Jeff, you know, call us in anytime. We love to deflate a few liberals that might listen on occasion.
Well, there's going to be some good topics between now and the end of the year. So, you know,
November.
If there are
We've
things
got
that
2
people
months, guys.
want to
This thing
discuss,
is
this
gonna
is
heat up.
a great format to bring it to the people. Let them discuss it.
Yep. I was talking earlier about how is, you know, this little girl Lauren Bear is running this commercial and shows this guy that Mass is stealing money from Social Security and Medicare. And I thought, man, he is slick. He's the only politician in the world that's stolen money
Most
from Medicare.
powerful.
The
most
clock
powerful.
guy.
How powerful can you be?
The clock guy?
Huh?
That clock guy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The clock
I know
guy.
that guy.
Do you know that guy?
No, I was like, what?
340 and Lauren Bear saying, really? That really happened? Huh? No, she didn't say that, but the bottom line was that commercial was run nonstop. And
But you know, a lot of commercials that are designed to paint your opponent poorly,
Yep.
that are not done properly
Yeah.
by those of us that are intelligent enough to know what's going on, we know we're not going to vote for you.
well, here comes a problem. You just said that are intelligent enough. Well, Dan,
Well, that's part of what we do, Joe. We're trying to make
We're here
people
to
more
educate.
aware of what things are going
Yeah.
on.
340-1590, 340-1590. I think we're winding down.
I would say find out for yourself, too. Don't just take the word of the
Absolutely.
news.
And you know what? You have the technology
These
to do
news
it.
channels have 24 hours to fill.
And
you
they
know.
fill it.
They're gonna,
And
yeah.
they beat it and they beat it,
Well,
and the story is
sometimes it pays
just
to
crazy.
flip channels and get 2 or 3 different opinions
Exactly.
almost at the same time. You know, it's called news sells, and bad news sells more than good news.
Here's the bad news. We're out of time.
We're
we're out of time.
Well, until next week.
Next week.
Adios.
You've been listening to the Team Martek Hour. The Team Martek Hour is a paid program. The content was provided by the advertiser. WPSL, its staff, management, and ownership were not responsible for its content. Investment involves risk. Prior to making any investment, an investor should meet suitability requirements. Past results are not necessarily indicative of future performance. Neither the opinions expressed nor the information provided constitutes a recommendation to purchase or provide investment advice. The material presented is not a substitute for obtaining professional advice from a qualified person or firm. Securities offered through Centaurus Financial, member FINRA and SIPC. Tune in again next Wednesday at 11:05 for the Team Martek Hour here on WPSL 1590.